Hey everybody, this is Ryan McClanahan with historythroughcards.com. Hope you're all doing very well today. So I recently came across two cards that I've been looking for since I was a kid, literally since the 1980s when they came out. And um, these cards, they're very popular still today. When I was a kid growing up in the 1980s, they were nearly impossible to get my hands on. And I always had a dream that one day I would be able to purchase these cards. And I did purchase four of the five that I'm going to show you here. Um, and these cards are they're memories for me. They're not just pieces of cardboard, although they are. But and it's the ball player on the card. It's my memories, and this is one of the things that I think that a lot of collectors will tell you, is that when as they get older and as generations get older, they start to kind of revert back to their childhood, and this is really no different in my case. Whereas um, I have specific memories of these cards and the time. It when I see them, it brings me back to when I was a kid collecting and collecting with my cousins for a little bit of time, maybe a day or so, that I get to just kind of chill out and relax with my cards. And I'm not just looking at the ball players. I am kind of like going back in my head, kind of like a time machine, if you will, to when these cards were issued. The Mario Lemieux, that was made in 1985. I remember 1984. I definitely remember 1986, because the Fly came out and Aliens and Critters, and I think I saw a House in the theaters. But well, so 1986 was not a good year for me personally, because I couldn't go anywhere in the house without thinking the Fly was after me, or Aliens, or Critters. Yeah, it was a really messed up childhood. Anyway, I don't remember 1985. Very barely I do. When the Mario Lemieux came out, I loved that card, but it was so damn expensive. There was no way that I could afford any of these cards, and um, I really didn't collect hockey as a kid. I didn't collect basketball, and I didn't collect football. I collected baseball because I love baseball. It's my number one love. And then maybe boxing. In fact, I think boxing is actually my first love, and then baseball is a very close second. In the event, these cards, when I do look at them, I am thinking of my time as a child and an early teenager. So, as you guys know, I stopped collecting modern cards in 1994 and went straight to vintage. And I have kind of dabbled in a little bit of modern now. Honestly, I get really confused and kind of taken aback at the modern market. Um, what is really interesting here is that I have read a couple of articles on what was going on in the late 1980s and the 1990s concerning these particular cards and what was going on in the hobby. And these articles that I'm going to read to you guys, what's really funny is that we are seeing something kind of close to this right now. The hobby seems to be cyclical, and what I mean by that is that I'm old enough to know that what is going on in the hobby now is nothing new, and especially when it comes to counterfeits. So these particular cards that I picked up, they were heavily counterfeited when I was growing up, and it's one of the reasons why Upper Deck ended up being probably the first company of its kind to have foil packs and holograms in the back of their cards. And so that's going to be a part of this, and I think it's going to be like a 3 or 4 part series. So I'm going to go through some of the articles, and then I'm going to go through the cards themselves and the pricing data that I have, and it should be kind of interesting, and I will meet you on the flip side. This is from the Press Enterprise, May 17, 1988, Bloomberg, Pennsylvania. Counterfeiting gum cards. Local collectors say they don't get duped, by Chuck Soders. Although there is a burgeoning market of counterfeit baseball cards circulating around the country, two avid area card collectors say the average collector needn't worry too much about being duped. Most of the dealers at card shows make a living at it and can't afford to get a reputation for dealing in bad cards, says Bob Bainey of Bloomberg, who has been collecting seriously for the past 3 years. You're pretty safe if you attend major shows. The places where you'd have to watch out for them are at flea markets or places like that. In those situations, you might have some people trying to make a quick killing, or even people who were pushing them without knowing it. Barney has seen copies of the 1984 Donruss Don Mattingly rookie card, one of the most widely circulated phonies. About a year ago, the Mattingly rookie card became a pretty hot card. The counterfeit card came up from Florida. It has a couple of idiosyncrasies from the real card. It's kind of blurry and has some printing errors on the back. It was noticeable. But Berwick collector Chaz Federico says a beginning collector would have to know what he was looking for to tell the difference between a well-done counterfeit card and the real thing. I have seen some of them, Federico said. I've seen the Pete Rose rookie card, and you would have to compare the two cards, real and counterfeit, in the shade. They're pretty close. They have the thing down pretty flat. Although the counterfeit cards are becoming a problem to serious collectors, the average collector needn't worry too much about them for a couple of reasons. First, only rare and valuable cards, which are limited circulation to start with, are counterfeited because they are the only ones which can make significant money. So, if all of a sudden a collector is seeing a lot of previously rare cards, it's a pretty good bet some are phonies. Secondly, the ever-changing market on certain cards makes it hard to predict what cards will be worth counterfeiting. Barney uses the Mark McGwire rookie as an example. Because of McGwire's 49-homer rookie season in 1987, his rookie card shot up in value as much as $30, but already has gone back down to about $17 in some price listings. Federico has been collecting on and off for about 20 years, he said, and really got seriously involved when his son, Chaz, now a football player at West Virginia University, was getting into it. We went into it pretty big, he said. I have about 2.5 million cards now. You can buy a complete set of 782 cards for $18 at one show. I bought 7 cases of cards. Such mass buying pays off, and that someone in a set of 782 cards is bound to be a player whose card will skyrocket in value over the years. Federico uses the Mattingly rookie as an example. We have maybe 180 Mattingly rookie cards now, he said. Federico also did well with the 1982 series because of Cal Ripken Jr., a rookie that year. Ripken's card that year was worth less than a penny at face value, according to Federico. It's now worth around $16 or $17, and he has about 200 of them. Charlie was a kid, and he had a pretty good eye on the rookies, the elder Federico said. Federico also has 3 of the 1963 Topps Pete Rose rookie cards purchased for $45 each. They're now worth more than $500. Benny is a little more focused in his collecting. He likes to deal in certain players, with Mickey Mantle being his passion. The 1952 Topps Mantle rookie card is one of the most valuable cards, worth as much as $6,000, and Banny says Mickey Mantle cards are generally worth more than the cards of his famous contemporaries Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, and Duke Snider. You have to remember Mickey Mantle played on the New York Yankees, Banny explains. Aaron played in Milwaukee, Mays went to San Francisco from New York, and Snider to Los Angeles. Mantle played in 12 World Series, Mays in 3 and Aaron in 2. Mantle was also the first television baseball hero. Typical of Mantle paraphernalia is the fact that dealers generally are able to sell Mantle items at above listed price. Banny attended a show at the Danville Sheraton last month where the dealers were getting $150 for a 1959 Mantle All-Star card, which generally lists for $95. In other words, the price keeps going up. But Banny also likes to keep an eye on other high-priced cards. In general, the most expensive cards are those of a Hall of Fame caliber player, or when he had record-setting seasons. For an example, a rookie card of the late Roberto Clemente is currently worth about $500 or $600. Banny says he's on the lookout for Roger Maris cards circa 1960-62. Maris was the American League most valuable player in both 1960 and 61 and broke Babe Ruth's home run record in 61. He is card number 1 in Topps 1962 set, listing now for $125. And Maris's rookie card with him in a Cleveland Indian uniform is also worth quite a bit. Banny says Maris is an example of a player whose card's worth just keeps growing. I bought a 1960 Maris card a while back for $20 and it's now worth $50, and if anything it's still undervalued, he said. He is on the hunt for a 1961 Maris. Banny also said there's a growing interest in certain offbeat cards. For example, a 1962 rookie card of a player who retired with a career batting average of .208 is now worth quite a lot to some people and lists as much as $90. That player? Johnny Carson's favorite, Mr. Baseball himself, Bob Uecker. Banny said Uecker's post-baseball career of poking fun at himself on The Tonight Show and in commercials and as a sitcom actor have pushed his card price up. You know he's eating that up, Banny said. This is from the Press Enterprise, Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, May 17, 1988. Beware of Bogus Baseball Cards by Norm Cohen. Until now, the most expensive card was the fabled 1910 Honus Wagner, which has been sold for more than $30,000. And of course, there's the 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle, which can set you back as much as $6,000. But did you know a 1985 Mark McGwire rookie card may wind up costing someone $250,000? That's the maximum fine for copyright infringement under the law. Bogus baseball cards are out there, and they're difficult to spot. They may look the same and cost the same, but they're still phony as a $3 bill. Some years ago, the word leaked out that baseball cards might actually be worth something. The next day, the pirates turned around on the printing presses and began to crank out their phony cardboard gold. We are aware of some counterfeiting, and the company policy is to vigorously prosecute anyone who sells counterfeit cards. Topps spokesman Normal Liss said, "We do everything we can to stop it." Topps is looking into reports of some fake 1985 McGwire cards that have been showing up recently in California. If the cheaters are caught, they're likely to lose more than their bubble gum. There are federal, state, and local laws to protect copyrights, Liss said. Infringement can be punishable by as much as a $250,000 fine and 5 years imprisonment. When McGwire first appeared in the 1985 set as a member of the U.S. Olympic team, his card was virtually worthless. On opening day in 1987, it was still valued at $0.25. 49 home runs later, the card was up to $20. With modern technology, it's possible to mass produce passable reproductions of full-color baseball cards for as little as 6 cents each, so the profit margin is there for someone who wouldn't think twice about defrauding children, not to mention collectors. Some notable fakes that have appeared over the past decade include Pete Rose's 1963 Topps rookie card, Don Mattingly's 1984 Don Russ rookie card, Mike Schmidt's 1973 rookie card, and now the McGuire. It is believed that the fake Mattingly cards were commissioned by a preteen in Florida and distributed by a network of youngsters. The bogus Rose cards originated in California. The parties responsible for the counterfeit Rose card were caught and prosecuted by local authorities, List said. The Mattingly and Schmidt cards are still floating around. Many of the fake Rose rookie cards remain in the hobby with the words counterfeit and original reprint stamped on the back. In a burst of humor last year at a card show in Chicago, Rose even autographed some of the counterfeit cards, signing the real Pete Rose on them. Of course, these cards had been stamped on the back and could do no one any harm. But what about counterfeits that haven't been marked? How can one spot a fake? There are ways to tell the difference, List said. The pictures may be fuzzy, the type may be muddy, or the cardstock may be different. Characteristics that usually give a counterfeit away, however, are the sharpness of copyright symbol on the back and the feel of the card. Handling the card before completing a transaction can be helpful. Plastic cases hide many flaws in genuine cards and can make bogus cards virtually undetectable. Even if the card looks right, take it out of the case and compare it in weight and print sharpness with one of the common players like J.C. Martin or Steve Trout, or the same issue. You might be able to tell right away that something is wrong. I never had to worry about the Pete Rose rookie because I never liked that card. I do have a few other Pete Rose cards in my collection, and I'm still looking for his 1965 Topps, which has dogged me forever. And obviously, the 1968 Topps is a card that I've told you guys about on several occasions. When I was in the third, fourth grade, I did come across that card in a card shop, and I was really kind of confused. How could you make a card that was really nice looking but with just a nasty design? And it really comes down, for me personally, the design and the photography, and okay, so the player is also important too, but I am a design guy, as I've told you guys in the past. Don Mattingly seemed to be a favorite target of a lot of counterfeiters back in the day, and it's this card right here that has been counterfeited really since day one. And there are reports of counterfeiting going back to at least 1971, and collectors going to shows and trying at least then pass off, as I remember hearing about 1959 Flair Ted Williams signs for 59. And what made that card, and still makes that card pretty valuable, is the fact that Bucky Harris is in that card, and he never signed a contract to be in that card. So that card is short printed. And in any event, with Don Mattingly here, I did watch him. I did see him play back in the 1980s, and I really, really enjoyed him. I was not a big Yankees fan back then. I do have respect for a lot of the older Yankees, and again, I'm in Red Sox country here, so I also saw Yaz play too, and I'm not a big fan of Yaz at all. However, with that said, this was a card that I had always heard about growing up and could never afford it. And before I get into this specific card, I just want to kind of go over Don Mattingly's career. He is definitely a player that I think should be up for Hall of Fame. He just missed Hall of Fame election in 2023. There was a little tear in my eye for that one. He really should be in the Hall of Fame. So I was always really impressed by his career, and a lot of people say that he had a very short career, and he did. In fact, one thing that also impressed me too was he played from 1982 to 1995 as a first baseman for the Yankees. He played in an era in which the Yankees really didn't win a World Series, and it's not his fault. He was, you're only one person on a team. He was a six-time All-Star from 1984 to 1989. He was the 1985 American League MVP, a nine-time Gold Glove winner from 1985 to 1989, 1991 through 1994, and three-time Silver Slugger Award from 1985 to 1987, the 1984 American League Batting Champion, 1985 American League RBI leader. His number 23 is retired, and the 1985 Major League Baseball Player of the Year. He was also a manager of the Dodgers from 2011 to 2015, and the Marlins from 2016 to 2022. In 2020, he was the Manager of the Year. He's also the recipient of the 1993 Lou Gehrig Memorial Award, and there's a documentary on him called Donnie Baseball, and I did see it. I thought it was quite good. It just kind of reinforced my belief that he should be in the Hall of Fame, and hopefully he gets there. I think he's very deserving. So, what really kind of hampered him was I think his wife told him to move the refrigerator, and he injured his back. But from what I remember in 1984 about specifically Don Russ is I love this set. This is one of my favorite all-time sets. I love the design, and this card in particular, it is always on a lot of people's want lists, even today. He does have, I think, two other rookie cards, a 1984 Topps and a 1984 Topps Tiffany. Those 84 Topps Tiffany's are, they're not really seen often, and I could never really tell the difference. Maybe it's just because I just don't have that kind of an eye, I guess. I never did for Topps Tiffany. I didn't really understand the concept. Maybe that's just me too. In any event, Don Russ were really difficult. I didn't know anybody who had them growing up, and the ones that I did see, I really wanted. I could never get my hands on any. They were always expensive, and I could never afford this card. I saw a few of these, but nobody ever wanted to trade, nobody ever wanted to sell, and the ones that I did see were just out of my price range. This card, from what I've heard too, is, and I'm going to be writing an article specifically on this particular set because of the design and the photography, which I'm going to talk about further in an article. I don't want to show you guys here because it's kind of technical. However, Don Russ had a pretty big problem in 1984, is from what I remember, that they didn't issue enough sets for dealers, and I think dealers were kind of jacking up the prices, and so this card is actually it's dark to begin with, and the ones that I've seen, the counterfeits that I've seen are pretty light. And so what I'm going to do is kind of go through some of this with you, and kind of just point out a few things that you should be on the lookout for. Today, you can grab this card. It's not that expensive, and if he gets in the Hall of Fame, it will be a little more expensive than it is today. However, although we're seeing a lot of counterfeits of the Mattingly card starting about 1984 or so, I'm not going to give you a price from 1984. That really kind of doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I don't think it's worth a lot of money in 1984 when that card came out. 1985 either. So what I figured I'd do is give you a price from 1991 in Beckett, and as you guys well know that there was only Tough Stuff and Beckett back then that I'm aware of, and most people that I knew used Beckett. So the 1984 Don Russ set, to begin with, the complete set of 658 cards was valued at $375 in 1991. And I'll go through some more financials as we go along to what the actual dollar was worth in 1991 and compare it to 2023. In 1991, though, this particular card was worth, let me see, this is absolutely fascinating. The card itself is worth $75. I didn't know anyone who had this card. As I said, these cards were really very difficult to see actually in the 1980s. I didn't see a whole lot of them. I did see them in Beckett magazine, and in the time in 1991, I'm looking through some of the sets here and what they're going for. The 1985 Don Russ is $185. 1984 Tops is $105. 1984 Fleer is $220. The update is a whopping $600. The Kirby Puckett Rookie is $200 and going up. That's amazing, because I don't think that any of these cards are going for anything to what they were back then. Now, the 1983 Tops is $165, and the 83 Tops traded is at $125. The 83 Flair is at $120. 82 Tops traded, which I'm going to talk about shortly, that is $165. This is really kind of very interesting to me to see these prices, because when this, obviously we're talking about modern cards in 1991, these cards obviously are not going for what they are now. I don't know too many collectors who are really collecting, say Bruce Sutter or Billy Martin, Dave Kingman, Jim Eisenreich, Mike Moore rookie, Jack Clark. I knew some of these guys. I watched them play. Tony Pena, Tim Raines. If anyone's collecting Tim Raines, it's probably his rookie card. But a lot of collectors today are not collecting these cards. And unfortunately, I think what's going to happen, and what I have seen, the older you are, I think, if you've gone through card collecting in, say, the 1970s or the 1980s, you've already seen what's going on now prior. So I think what's going to happen to modern cards today, 20, 30 years from now, 40 years from now, it's going to be the same thing. You're probably going to have maybe one generation who is still collecting the cards of today, and that's the collectors who have seen the players. They're not going to be avidly collected, because really nobody's avidly collecting a 1983 Don Russ set for the most part, unless you grew up in the era, which I did, and it's the reason why I have all these sets from the 1980s. And I've told you guys in the past that I couldn't get my hands on a lot of these sets, although I did have individual cards. And the sets that I did have was, say, a 1987 Tops, which were all over the place. You couldn't get rid of those cards. 1988, 1989. This is really the junk wax era. A lot of people say that the junk wax era started in about 1987. I actually think it starts in 1974. And then other people think that it started in 1981. I did write an article about 1981 being a very, very important year for the hobby, and that's because of the Topps Flair lawsuit and the end of Topps monopoly, which is very important. But I can see where that these cards are starting to go up in price in about 1975 through 1981 specifically, and that's again because of Beckett comes out in 1984 with his monthly magazine, and what he kind of did was to streamline the prices through a mathematical formula, and we get a better accounting of what these cards are actually going for instead of people in price guides or books saying, this card is worth this, but then they don't really have anything to back it up, nothing to show for it except what they believe. And so Jim Beckett really kind of came in there and through a mathematical formula stated this card is worth XYZ because I've had all these dealers throughout the country send me, I think it was a slip that they would send into Beckett with all the prices that they've bought or sold cards at, and then he'd go in and just kind of like tally all that up, and that's where you get the prices in the price guide, and it made things more reliable, I think. And then prior to that, you had his Sport Americana, which I think he kind of like did the same thing with. And then the farther back you go with the price guide, I think that's when you start to have issues with sports cards and counterfeiting. Obviously, I told you that the first time that I remember hearing about a counterfeit card was 1971. However, it only gets worse throughout the 1980s and especially in the 1990s. And there's one company in particular that tried to do something about it, and that was Upper Deck. And I am going to talk about Upper Deck in another video. I just want to kind of tell you about these cards today. So let me show you kind of like what to look for when it comes to the Don Mattingly here. Okay, so this is pretty obvious. If you guys haven't taken any printing courses or tried to study printing, I really highly recommend it, and this is really why. If you are getting into vintage sports cards especially, I think it would behoove you to at least kind of try to pick up on the printing process, especially lithography. It has changed over the last 100 years. And I'm going to discuss this a little bit further in my look into the T206 and T205s and maybe even the T207. But for this right here, this card really does show that it is a pretty well done fake. Unfortunately, today, I think a lot of people a lot of dealers on the internet say that this card they're not sure if it's a reprint or not, but they're selling it as is, or it is a fake. But the problem here is that you can buy these cards pretty cheap and then sell them and not tell anybody that they're a reprint. In this case, Don Mattingly's original card, which you can see here side by side, it is a darker card originally, and this one is much lighter. You can definitely tell in his face that it's not supposed to be that light. I don't know what printer that they're using today to kind of do this. The dot matrix, I think, kind of gives it away. The other thing that you can definitely tell is with the design where it says Yankees, that's not crisp in the forgery. And I am going to call this a forgery, but it's not a deliberate forgery. The dealer here is telling you that it's a deliberate fake. So that again, if you can't afford the original card, there are reprints, and a lot of these reprints actually do say reprint on them, but you just gotta kind of worry about the ones that don't. So the Yankees is not very clear and crisp. the lettering itself is kind of surrounded by like a white border, which is kind of strange, and same with Don Mattingly. And then the banner at the bottom as well, where it says Don Mattingly first base. The original card itself, that's a deep blue, and on this one it's a much lighter shade. And the 1980, the 84, the Donruss, that I love that design. I really think it's very cool. And that's one of the things that Donruss really did very well, was with its designs, and especially the logo for Donruss. I think is classic. It's certainly classic 1980s. These cards are really kind of sharp to begin with. I mean, what I mean by that is you're still going to find a lot of 1984 Donruss in decent condition. And I think maybe that's because a lot of collectors saw future value in these cards. And when I purchased that set, I paid $125 for it, and that at the time that was a lot of money. But as I showed you guys before, that set was nearly $400 set, and it could have actually gone past that. So collectors in say 1991 or 92 or 93, 94, they could have easily paid $500+ for that set. I don't think that anybody's paying $500 for an 84 Donruss set, although I think in my own personal opinion, the 1984 Donruss set is one of the nicest looking sets of the 1980s. That's just me personally. Donruss always did have really great looking designs, except for 1988 was not a good looking design, and so 1993 as well. But you guys get the picture. The other thing too that is kind of sticking out to me is the background. And again, in 1984 Donruss are very distinct in the backgrounds, and I will go through that in another video. But you can definitely kind of tell that this particular card, the fakes that I'm seeing are pretty easily spotted. But that article is correct. If you're not familiar with the card or the set, you are a newer collector, you can be taken for a ride. So the back of the card, again, when we flip it over here, you really got to look out for the text. Again, the text should be nice and crisp. It can be a little bit difficult too with the new printing technology being used. It can fool some people. If you're not familiar with the original card, as you can see right here, it's a deep robin's egg blue, but the fakes are not going to be that rich of a color. They're going to be a little lighter, as you can see here. And the other thing that I would look out for too, the statistics and the Yankees. It says 1982 Yankees, batting average 167. I'd look out for that too, because sometimes the text can be lighter as well and not well defined. And so when you're going to a card show, I would definitely bring, I know you can't bring a regular microscope like that I have, so I bring a jeweler's loupe instead. And then if you're really unsure too, one of the best things that you can do too is bring a gram scale and another card from this specific set. Now, I know when you whip out the gram scale, immediately cops, they start looking around. Hey, what are you doing over there with that gram scale? But honestly, officer, it's just for baseball cards, nothing more. In this case, the forgers always seem to get the weight of the card wrong. The card stock is not the same card stock usually used. It's usually, I think, maybe kind of lighter. In this case, it's a little heavier, but I've noticed too that the card stock that was used for 1984, it is kind of different, I think, from cardstock that was used in say 1987. the dealer is not really going to let you feel the card, but you can move the card from side to side as well to get a clearer picture of the gloss and kind of like what the card should kind of like look like. A lot of these cards, the fakes, might not have the same gloss, and that's another giveaway. But you really do have to study the cards first. And I am always telling people to study the cards. This is a hobby that you really do need to study. You really do need to like sit down and kind of like look over some of the cards that you're looking for before you make a purchase. I think that's one of the safest ways to go about it, because after all, it is your money, and you know you could find a really nice card, and it all really kind of comes down to how you negotiate for that deal. I love card shows, as you guys know, but card shows, the lighting in a lot of these places suck. It also might help you out to have maybe a kind of something like maybe a black light or a light. Now, black lights, they might not work for these specific cards, and I'll tell you why. And that's because of optic brighteners. Optic brighteners were used in paper products going back to at least 1939, 1940, and really what they do is to make your brights brighter and your whites whiter, and that's really where you might have a difficult time with these cards that I'm talking about today, because when you look at them through a black light, obviously it's going to fluoresce, and the more fluorescence there is, the more optical brighteners there are. And so if you're looking at a vintage card, say a 1940 play ball or a T206, you're not going to see those optical brighteners because they didn't exist. At least they shouldn't. And so if they are there, that means that that particular card from, say, 1940 and before is a reprint or a fake. That's one of the problems you're going to face if you try to put a Don Mattingly rookie under a black light. This particular Don Mattingly card is on a lot of want lists. I don't know how many forgeries, reprints there are out there of this particular card, but the thing is, you will be able to find out what the particulars of a certain card are, and every card has a certain thing to it.